Alongside our famous individualism, there's another ingredient.
This is Barbara, and we have a beautiful day today in Cambridge. And I'd like today to focus our attention on importance of beauty, because people think that goodness is completely dissociated with beauty. And I would say goodness is a form of good, and beauty is a form of good too. So we should search for beauty within ourselves, within our appearances, within our images, within words, within heritage. We should search for beauty and create it, because it is a form of good. It is something that is food for the eyes. It's nurture and nourishment for our vision. And I'd like today to start with a very beautiful video that I found on YouTube. And I wanted you to see how beautiful it is. It's called Flying Flowers. There's a lot of all kinds of videos under this name, but this one really touched my heart. We have a situation today in world culture that is very similar to ancient Renaissance and also ancient Greece and Rome, Byzantine Empire, Israel. And it is about the fact that things of beauty, things that are created to be appreciated by all living people, that they have a special uniqueness, that it is not the same property as a house or a car. It is very much connected to interpersonal communication and peacemaking activity. That's why in many times in the past, creativity concerning beauty and art and culture was promoted by major political, social, church, temple institutions. That's where most of the money came to promote arts, so that people who receive those arts feel free to enjoy those. And at the same time, those who produce those arts that are of the highest value would be rewarded. But throughout the ages, art was promoted as good that makes people happy. And only certain kinds of art and music and other cultural outputs were copyrighted, because the content, the meaning and the purpose of copyright was not to block people from seeing those works of art, but from claiming authorship. So traditionally that problem is resolved when authorship is acknowledged and people enjoy those wonderful works that never come just from the person's head. They are products of that person's education, upbringing, social connections, and then the talent of an individual person and hard work and good luck. Inspiration from God creates opportunities to put it together. But when we look at some of the greatest achievements of human mind, like Nicolas Copernicus, who created scientific circumstances that allowed him to prove beyond any doubt that the sun is not going around the earth, but the earth around the sun. At that time, it was considered a very dangerous statement, and yet it is true. How did he do it? He did it by having tremendous faith in God, and Holy Spirit gave him the gift of knowledge that allowed him to make this scientific knowledge available to church officials and then to everybody else. And I think we have to be very understanding about this process, because there were times of such strict control over arts and music that people were literally going bananas from hearing the same music over and over and over and over again in workplaces and radio stations. Today we have choice because of diverse websites, and that created more opportunities for creativity, and people started showing things that are just amazing. So the solution is always about how to fund arts, and I think that we have that understanding about health. There are funds that create money, that collect money for all kinds of health purposes. We should have those kinds of funds for arts and music and cultural creativities. In other words, that connection to funding of the arts should be in terms of scholarships, encouragement to produce those wonderful things, but also to make corridors open for artists and musicians to freely communicate with each other, learn from each other. Learning is not copying. Learning is not copyright violation. Learning is educational process that allows people to perceive and connect with knowledge. Now, what happened over the last 100 years or so is very different than any time in the history of mankind, and it's because we have recording opportunities. But what happened now is that almost everything is available through recording, and artists lost connection with the audience, with direct audience. And I think it is not good. I think that recording music and recording of art so very well, but it will not substitute that direct connection between the audience and the artist. And this is something that is virtually non-existent anymore. And I think that created a situation in which the best artists are disconnected from direct connection with the audiences, and the entering artists, those who are just beginning to connect, they really don't have an audience because the audience is not used to this. So I'm raising some issues that we should discuss, because things as they were in the 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s will not come back. Those were not good ways to promote art. They promoted some wonderful groups and then created this situation that whole generations did not develop because there was no freedom to copy from each other, to learn from each other, just to develop skills and connection with the audience. So I think that blocking educational aspects of arts, music, and culture is something that created that very uneasy situation that artists sing only for the money. They don't want to express beauty. They don't want to search for beauty. They don't want to find that amazing, wonderful inspiration in their hearts, but they really want the money. And the outcome is that a lot of what is happening today in the arts is flat, is unappealing, is boring. And I think that we have to understand that music is not just sound. It comes from the person's soul, from creativity of the whole being. And that being and soul and spirit learn from other beings, spirit and soul. So I think that YouTube is providing service that is priceless because it's allowing people to be extremely creative. And without it, we would have huge poverty on earth in terms of culture. So I wanted you to see one of the a little fragment, Flying Flowers, that was created by Lona, and you'll see how beautiful this creative work is and how uplifting, and it wouldn't exist without educational aspect of learning from each other's works. So this is extremely beautiful, as you saw. And why I'm stressing beauty so much? Because most of the conflict in contemporary world today is around beauty, about how a person looks like, how a person doesn't look like, how whole groups should be divided by their biological features, etc., etc. And this is a very strange way to look at organization of social life. I believe that organization of social life should be by families, and within the family we have many marriages, many children, and they can come from diverse lands, but they are always assimilated into bloodline of a family. So the organizing power is the bloodline, and some of you have diverse members of your families from different races, and they are very loyal to the family because they are loyal to the bloodlines, and they understand that their children welfare depends on good family support. And today there is this very strange dissociative situation that people got separated from thinking about the bloodlines and started thinking about justice. Now, if you honor justice more than you honor your mother and your father, you create vacuum within your own life, because there is a very powerful law of nature and of God, also of the universe, that stresses the importance of goodness, of heritage in our family connections. So I think that looking for beauty is a higher level of creating peace in the world than looking for punishment of justice. Because the way people look today in justice is not to find the right order of things, like we learn from Plato's Republic, from great political philosophy teachers who taught about wisdom to find the right way to live. So the original meaning of justice was to find the right way to organize societies, and heritage has always been key to it. Look at how important heritage is in ancient Israel. Is son of, son of, son of, son of. It's an ordering principle. When you look at the origins of God's presence in Israel through Abraham had two sons, Ishmael and Isaac, and God preferred Isaac, and Sarah gave birth to him, and that origin of heritage is still valid today, thousands of years later. So if someone tries to look at this particular situation and say, who cares what God did, we'll just look at civil law and just change it, then you'll deal with divine law, and that is not a wise idea, because civil law is mortal, divine law is immortal. So right there, civil law always loses. So civil law should be in alignment with goodness of basic ways of our life, and the fact that we come from certain parents is the foundation of it. We cannot change that and live. So I think that if we understand that justice is important, but it should be looked as the order of things, the right measure. Because if it is only looked as source of punitive measures in order to shift money from one group to another, it's just another sin. God is not going to bless sins. But when we look at divine law as a guidance and we see that beauty of God is what exists in heaven. Heaven has no ugliness. Heaven is beauty. But we still have to search for it and ask God for it. And that beauty is within all of us. Whatever our race is, we all are in the image of God. So that is my foundation for promoting search for beauty. Because beauty has the other person, and that other person is goodness, good. So when we search for goodness within each other, within our origin, and that is our parents and their parents, but primarily our immediate parents, then we'll search for goodness within that structure and ask God to heal what needs to be healed within that situation and to be creative. In other words, what God gives to us is free. It comes from freedom of kingdom of God, including the spirit of liberty. God does not put copyright on our bloodlines. God gives us freedom to live within us, because if he had put copyrights on our bloodlines, we would not be able to separate ourselves individually from restrictions. But God created us in his image, which means he is the measure of our beauty, our life, our ways, our understanding, our knowledge. And we do not have to ask God for permission to use this. This is birthright. Okay? So what I'm saying is we have to understand the difference between birthright and copyright. Birthright is also our creativity and social and cultural heritage. So when we understand this deeply, we get liberty, because then the system of justice has to yield to it and has to understand that no human justice can put copyright on what God gave us freely. So we need to really rethink the entire spirit of liberty and the way the system of justice is defined around matters of creativity and benefiting from it. Because the constant claim on something that is part of heritage of thousands of years is not going to bring liberty within us to create new things in every generation, because then the new generation would be bound by those restrictions and not have the liberty to use heritage to develop it into new things, new works, new music, new architecture, new science. And we have that situation today that a lot of young people have spirit of fear within them around matters of creativity, and that is not a good thing. So I encourage the thinking about matters of creating relationships between the audience and the artist that is beneficial for both, but without restrictions on what they freely receive in their bloodlines and what they freely receive from God.